5 o'clock on the dot this Friday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes. America's top diplomat heading back to the Middle East as tensions there continue to rise among the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict. It looks like Antony Blinken left Washington last night. He has stops planned in Turkey, Jordan, Qatar, and the UAE to address concerns about a wider conflict there. Meanwhile,
rebels based in Yemen have launched yet another attack on a commercial ship, this time using a one-way unmanned attack boat, and no one was hurt. Now, the rebels backed by Iran have attacked several commercial ships in recent weeks in support of Hamas. The attacks are forcing ships to take long detours, and that's driving up shipping costs. Global shipping rates are up more than 60% in the last week, and from Asia to the west coast of the U.S., rates are up 30%.
As Ike Jaichi reporting. Right now in Nashville, Metro Police have reassigned 10 police officers who were under review for the leak of some of the Covenant school shooters' writings to a podcaster. That podcaster claimed photos he received were taken by a detective at the scene of the shooting that day. Metro Police conducted an internal investigation. They tried to interview a former detective who had the images of the writings, but that person refused to cooperate. The department claims there is no evidence of wrongdoing on the part of any current member of the department, but would not explain why these 10 detectives have been reassigned. They were with the Special Investigations Unit. Channel 4 says they got mixed reaction to a new bill that would ban emotional support animals from hotels and restaurants in Nashville that are not trained or being trained to perform tasks or work for a person with a disability.
I go to coffee shops almost every single day. I love hanging out with dogs, too. And what's the point of an emotional support animal if not to be emotionally supported?
I think that Nashville, we have a big popularity of taking our dogs into grocery stores, into restaurants. I see it both ways. I have a dog, but I do not take my dog into restaurants because I do not want to be around animals when I eat.
Now, the bill was filed yesterday for introduction into the General Assembly by Lobelville Republican State Rep Kirk Haston and Savannah Republican State Senator Paige Whaley. From the files of You Can't Please Everyone, Outside Magazine compiled a list of visitor reviews to some of our nation's national parks. And one of the complaints against Tennessee's Smoky Mountains stands out. The Tennessean says among those complaints, there was no Taco Bell. Tennessee's Smoky Mountains National Park is the most visited national park in America, with nearly 13 million sightseers in 2022 alone. No Taco Bell at Smoky Mountains. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. Online at beaconcm.com. Here's Daria Albinger.
Stocks continue to slide for a third straight day, closing at the session's lows. The Dow closed up 10 points, while the S&P fell 16 and the Nasdaq gave up 82. Investors are trying to read signals that a solid job market may be keeping inflation from cooling off as quickly as it could. First-time jobless claims fell again last week as the Labor Department continues to show resilience despite elevated interest rates. They dropped to 202,000 in the final week of 2023, down 18,000 from the week before. The government's December employment numbers will be released on Friday. Peloton surged almost 14% on word that it's going to partner with TikTok on short-form workout videos. Walgreens is cutting its dividend nearly in half as a drugstore chain looks for ways to strengthen its balance sheet. The company, which runs a network of about 13,000 stores worldwide, also announced a better-than-expected fiscal first quarter.
All right, checking futures ahead of this morning's opening bell on Wall Street. Dow futures down 66, S&P down 11, Nasdaq down 60. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Nashville's morning news with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
We talk news. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
507, Nashville's morning news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to your friends. Finally a Friday, and I got to tell you, I've got so much great audio. I don't know about you. I've been triggered by Alejandro Mayorkas this morning. We'll get into that conversation coming up. But he was asked a question about whether or not he will actually step down if he is impeached by the Republicans in the House of Representatives. And I know that you'll be shocked to hear that he doesn't actually answer the question. And I'm going to play you just this very quick piece of audio. It's part of a far bigger package that I'm going to do coming up in the 6 o'clock hour. But I do find it interesting because there are so many different ways that he has the ability to simply not answer a question. So this was the question from Brett Baer, and it was, obviously a very relevant question.
If you were impeached, would you step down? You'd be the first cabinet member to be impeached by the House in 148 years.
All right, so I want you to listen to his answer. Alejandro Mayorkas, clearly he is not interested in actually answering the question.
The numbers are historic. The numbers are extraordinarily large. This is something that is not specific to the United States' southern border.
In other words, he's going on with the talking points. But what he's not doing is he's not answering the question about whether or not he will step down if he is impeached. He goes on and on. It's about the same talking points that he always says, which is, I'm proudly working with 200 and whatever thousand members of my team and my agency to protect the American people in the border, which everyone knows is, frankly, a bunch of BS.
This is something that we are seeing throughout the hemisphere and throughout the world. We have increase in authoritarian regimes.
And he goes on and on. In other words, basically, and part of the news story, and this is part of the news cycle today, is that he punts. That's the actual word that they're using. He's punting on the question as to whether or not he will step down. Now, obviously, the answer is that he will not step down. He will more than likely fight it tooth and nail, but that is what the Biden administration does. Part of the issue that I think the American people have with the Biden administration is that they don't accept accountability or responsibility for what is happening not only on the southern border, but also to America by and large. I don't know if you saw this, and let's go through the talking points of all of the issues that Joe Biden has had. I mean, we have the border, we have the economy, we have the disastrous pullout of Afghanistan. We have an abundance of things that have gone wrong under the Biden administration. Yet I want you to hear this. This is Joe Biden now. He has released his very first campaign commercial heading into November of 2024 and the next election. This is the card that Joe Biden is going to play.
I've made the preservation of American democracy the central issue of my presidency. I believe in free and fair elections and the right to vote fairly and have your vote counted. There's something dangerous happening in America. There's an extremist movement that does not share the basic beliefs in our democracy. All of us are being asked right now, what will we do to maintain our democracy? History's watching. The world is watching. And most important, our children and grandchildren will hold us responsible. The Vice President and I have supported voting rights since day one of this administration. And I ask every American to join me.
So this is the card that Joe Biden is going to play.
Possibilities where the power resides with we, the people. That's our soul. We are the United States of America. There is nothing beyond our capacity when we act together. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
I bet you did. You know, this is an insult to the American people.
His voice sounds weird in that. His voice sounds odd.
Why? Because he's lying. So to me, it sounds perfectly normal.
I'm just saying there's something was done. producing that.
You know what's interesting? Here's what I thought was interesting, Ken, and I wasn't even going to bring this up, but now that you did, I will bring it up as well. Where of all of the speeches, I want you to think about this. Of all of the speeches that Joe Biden has given and all of the interviews that Biden has given, they couldn't come up with one soundbite where he actually has, a clean, non-mumbling piece of audio.
Yes.
Where he's not flubbing the big line.
I've made the preservation of American democracy the central issue of my presidency.
You couldn't find a better soundbite than that for the first campaign video of 2024?
That's what I'm saying. He is, quote unquote, shanking it right off the bat.
Yeah. And this is from he's Joe Biden and he approved this message. I mean, I thought it was
interesting.
What's the right way to, it's so fitting that the Biden administration itself couldn't find a piece of audio where he's not slurring his way through the main talking point.
I made the preservation of American democracy the central issue of my presidency. I believe in free and fair elections.
Man.
I believe in free and fair elections.
I believe in free and fair elections.
I believe in free and fair elections.
Yeah, they have definitely had to doctor this thing, and it still sounds weird.
Oh, this is, what's so funny? They couldn't find artificial intelligence to make Joe Biden sound intelligent.
I believe in free and fair elections.
Oh, my God.
Wow. Very interesting.
I mean, here's the other thing, Ken, is that's the quality of candidate that Joe Biden is just from a messaging standpoint. Wow. Now, when you start talking about the lies that are in the 60-second video, which is where I was going to go, I mean, there's so many untruths that are in that 60-second video. And so I do wonder, with everything that is going on, and with the president so horrifically underwater on every single issue.
Yeah.
Is this a jump the shark moment, do you think, for the American people with Joe Biden? Or do you think they've already had that jump the shark moment? That's the thing that I wonder. Because the whole point is that he's talking about how, Donald Trump is a threat to democracy and, MAGA Republicans are a threat to democracy. And it's almost like, is this really the card that you're going to play when we have all of these other more substantive issues to talk about? It is 5:15, time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. Thank you very much. Partly cloudy today. High near 50. Cloudy this weekend. The highs 47 on both days. Expect some rain on Saturday, 27 now at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And so one of the things, as we talk about the substance of this first campaign commercial from Joe Biden, where basically it's this very familiar discussion of protecting democracy and about how Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to democracy. I do believe that this may be a jump the shark moment, because this type of thinking, I believe, at this point, will only work with hardcore leftists who are predisposed to vote for, frankly, anyone but a Republican. And it'll also work, I believe, for rhinos like a Chris Christie or Mitt Romney. But, independents, and this is important, the younger generation, minorities, black folks, Hispanic folks. Remember earlier this week, you had old Charlemagne there saying that he was disappointed in Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and about how he had regretted his support of those two. And so for people like Charlemagne and for people who they were given a lot of promises, and Joe Biden and the Democrats, they simply have not fulfilled those promises. As a matter of fact, they've gone completely against some of the things that they promised. And yet Biden comes out again with this very tired threat to democracy campaign, which I think for most of the American people, given the last 3 years, they really, I believe people are going to say, really, you're going back to that? Don't you want to talk about, the last 3 years of vaccine mandates and broken border policies and massive crime in cities across America, the failed pullout of Afghanistan, massive economic problems due to his reckless spending that really did hurt Americans. And many folks, maybe you, are still trying to pay off all of that credit card debt because you had to actually use your credit card to pay your bills. Let's not forget about the Chinese spy balloon fiasco. Joe Biden's inability, of course, to speak or find himself the right way to get off of a stage, for the love of Pete. So simply put, Joe Biden cannot defend his record, so he's going back to this. I mean, it is laughable. And here's the other crazy thing, of course, is you have Biden trying to say that he is going to save democracy and the right to vote in all of this. And by the way, don't forget that this was the same thing that they said. Remember Jim Crow 2.0 in Atlanta when the Republicans, tried to fortify the voting laws there in Georgia. And you had Joe Biden and, Stacey Abrams and Kamala Harris and all of these people say, oh, it's Jim Crow 2.0 and, we've got to fight to save democracy and protect the vote and all these things. And they had record numbers of black folks come out to vote. And so you would think that at this point, they would understand that this really is an insult to the intelligence of the American people. But here's the other point that I would make, is that his own party, Joe Biden's own party, the Democrats, simply are not really allowing any other Democrats to run against him. Even though polling clearly shows that by and large, the Democrats do want another choice. That's the sound effect when I make a great point. Here's the other crazy thing, though. This is from Time magazine. Now Joe Biden is doubling down on this approach that Republicans are a threat to democracy with his first campaign speech of 2024 set for Friday. Campaign aides say the speech on the eve of Saturday's third anniversary of the January 6th attack on the Capitol is intended to frame the next election as another turning point in the nation's democracy. And so I think all of this threat to democracy stuff is laughable because they themselves, the Democrats, are destroying democracy themselves by trying to pull Donald Trump off of the ballot in a number of different states. Right now, officially in Colorado and Maine. Now, the question is, when you look at the polling and how Joe Biden is underwater on literally every issue, he's incredibly unpopular. Is this a slam dunk for the Republicans? I think that's a very big question. And Mark Thiessen, who is a political analyst on Fox News, says, no, Donald Trump is not a slam dunk. I want you to listen very closely to what Mark Thiessen, political analyst for Fox, has to say.
Yeah, it's going to be decided by a few thousand swing voters in a handful of swing states. It's just that simple. So The question for Republican primary voters is who can appeal to those swing voters that are going to decide the election. There's been a lot of reporting that Democrats are panicking that Trump could beat Biden. I think Republicans are not worried enough that Biden could beat Trump. There's this perception on the right now that Biden is so unpopular and so disastrous as a president that there's no possible way he could win re-election. Well, he can.
Well, there you go. And by the way, I think part of that message from Mark Thiessen is clearly a comment on Trump versus Haley. I think that's part of what that is. It may be subliminal, but there is this question about whether or not Nikki Haley should be the nominee or should it be Donald Trump. Remember, the polling shows Haley beating Biden in a general election by more than Donald Trump. And he is right when he says that the race basically will be decided by a few voters in a few states, battleground states. And by the way, this is what I said heading into 2020. when it came to fraud, where you don't need widespread voter fraud. You simply need a few strategic counties in battleground or swing states to be manipulated to turn an election, to manipulate an election, to steal an election. Places like Michigan and Georgia, for example. Same concept applies here. So the polling is interesting, but, I got two words for you, friends, and that would be red wave. The red wave that never happened.
I mean, it's true. He is the most unpopular president in the history of polling, going all the way back to World War II. 76% of Americans say he's too old for a second term. He's underwater on every single issue that voters say they care about. And yet, if you look at the Real Clear Politics average, he is statistically tied with Donald Trump. Trump leads by 2.2% in the RCP average. With a president that is so weak and so vulnerable as Joe Biden, the Republican ought to be crushing him in the polls, and he's not. And that race is going to tighten more between now and Election Day. So Republicans need to sort of decide, do you want this election to be a toss-up, or do you want it to be a landslide? Because that's the question they're going to be facing in Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina in these votes coming up very soon.
All right, so that is Mark Thiessen. Clearly that is a question about who should be the nominee for the Republicans. Should it be Nikki Haley or should it be Donald Trump? I would remind Mark Thiessen that Donald Trump leads Joe Biden in 7 swing states. At least that was according to The Hill a few weeks ago. And the latest polling, I don't have time to get into it now, but the latest polling does show Donald Trump beating Joe Biden, but the polling also shows Nikki Haley doing the same and by a wider margin in some of the polling. So there's a lot out there, and we'll continue to cover it all for you right here on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. 524, Ken Weaver, what's coming up in the news?
Got more tension in the Middle East. Iranian-backed militants getting braver. Covenant school shooter writings case developments here in Nashville. A Nashville firefighter is in trouble for fighting a house fire. We'll tell you why coming up at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken. The Super Text line is open, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN, 525. Stay close.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. We know that diversification is an important part of the investing process, but how do you reduce risk of a portfolio through diversification? Well, you use correlations. Now think of bathing suit sales and suntan oil sales. They tend to move together, right? Think of bathing suit sales versus winter coat sales. More dissimilar movement, and that's the idea. But why is diversification so important? Well, think about it this way. Everybody would like to have this happen with their investments. They just go straight up. But what we know is this is really what tends to happen. Markets may go way up and then down, or down, then way up. Now let's say if we isolate parts of that curve right there, and the first curve right there, and the second curve right there. If you're putting money away for retirement, every time you put money in, if this is what's going on, you're buying more shares. Then just before you retire, the market goes up, you're really happy. If, on the other hand, you keep paying a higher and higher price and then the market goes down, you're really sad. And we can't choose what's going to happen with the market next. But what we can do is what we know through academic research, and there are Nobel Prizes awarded for this, is we can look for things that tend to move in dissimilar fashion. And what happens when we do that, we can reduce the volatility of the portfolio, hence bringing those curves in. Now that's the idea. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
For many of us, generators are becoming a must-have household appliance. From unpredictable weather to surprise outages, it's better to be safe than sorry. Generator Supercenter of Nashville offers fast and easy installations with 24/7 service and monitoring to all brands of generators and expert repairs done right. Our mission is to make owning a backup generator simple and easy. Visit your local store today or check us out online. Generator Supercenter of Nashville. We serve all Middle Tennessee.
5:30 on the dot this Friday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast. Tell you about some rain this weekend. Also, the updated traffic coming up in 5 minutes. America's top diplomat on his way to the Middle East again as concerns over the Israel-Hamas war spreads. For instance, in the Red Sea, rebels based in Yemen have launched another attack on a commercial ship, this time using a one-way unmanned attack boat. No one was hurt. Elsewhere,
the U.S. military launched the drone strike in Baghdad in response to the recent attacks on American forces. Now, the attack yesterday killed a militia leader blamed for targeting U.S. forces in Iraq. Tensions have been rising across the region since the start of Israel's war with Hamas.
That's Ike Jaichi reporting. He says Secretary of State Antony Blinken left Washington last night. He has stops planned in Turkey, Jordan, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. Here in Nashville, Metro Police not explaining why 10 detectives they question over the Covenant School documents case are being reassigned. The department claims there's no evidence any current officer or employee had anything to do with it, but no explanation for why these 10 detectives are being removed from the Special Investigations Unit. Metro Police say they tried to interview a former detective who had those materials, but that person refused, and the department claims that, again, no current employee had anything to do with the leak. Another military mishap. Accident investigators heading to South Dakota to figure out what brought down an Air Force aircraft.
The B-1 bomber, nicknamed Lancer, was assigned to Ellsworth Air Force Base and was on a training mission at the South Dakota facility Thursday evening. As it attempted to land, something went wrong and the plane went down. The 4 crew members recognized the problem early enough that they were able to eject before the crash. Their conditions haven't been disclosed, but the Air Force tells ABC News that all 4 ejected safely.
That's Jim Ryan reporting. And back here in Nashville, a firefighter's in trouble for fighting a house fire. The reason? It wasn't in his jurisdiction. According to an arrest affidavit, Rutherford County Fire and Rescue was working a house fire December 18th when Nashville Fire Department employee Jacob Wellbaum showed up, grabbed some gear, some breathing equipment from the fire engine there. He ignored orders from Rutherford County authorities to stop, but allegedly entered the home anyway and started shouting orders to everyone else. News 2 says Wellbaum was charged with 5 counts of reckless endangerment, 1 count of disorderly conduct. His bond was set at $10,500. He's still working for the Nashville Fire Department, but not making any emergency responses or working with the public at this time. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
536, Nashville's morning news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Time for the gang of three amigos. Johnny B's here. Good morning, Johnny.
Good morning, Dan.
Ken's here. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning, boys. Yeah.
I'm Dan. Please say good morning to me.
Good morning, Dan.
Thank you. Please acknowledge. Please say good morning. So, Ken.
Yeah, Brother Dan.
Can I just acknowledge something that your newscasts have had a lot of weird in it today?
Yeah, it has, and I like it.
So let's go through some of these stories.
Okay.
First of all, I thought the one where the guy from the fire department runs into a fire, not in his jurisdiction, and starts screaming orders.
Yeah.
That's like, so just so you folks know, that would be like me running into a radio station in Chattanooga and telling them, to change their programming.
Right.
Or, somebody who works for one division of a company, unaffiliated with the other division running in and shouting orders as well. But
Kill the music.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
We're going rock and roll.
So, but what has he been charged with?
Let's see. Let me get back to that story there, Brother Dan Mandis. News 2 says that he has been charged with reckless endangerment, disorderly conduct, and he's no longer responding to emergencies where he works in Nashville, but he is still part of the Nashville Fire Department squad.
So can I play devil's advocate?
Yeah.
Was he just trying to help?
I don't know.
Or was this like some sort of a narcissistic power grab?
Don't know. All I know is that apparently Rutherford County Fire and Rescue didn't need him there or didn't want him there.
Well, they probably didn't appreciate it. And listen, I don't know anything about fighting fires. I've taken part in a few dumpster fires, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But when it comes to fighting fires, does each sort of jurisdiction or fire department have their own policy? If this guy runs in, he's from Nashville, and he starts shouting orders when they've already got, the people that are in charge working on it, then I can see why they would say that this is reckless endangerment. Now, if he went in and he's, asking how he can help, that's a little bit of a different dynamic, right?
Everybody stop what you're doing. How can I help?
Listen to me. I'm in charge now. Who was it that said I'm in charge now? I can't remember. The politician. Somebody, the president, somebody on the super text line tell me, who was the president who was in surgery and then somebody else said, I'm in charge now?
Alexander Haig.
Alexander Haig. Thank you, Johnny. So, I mean, it sounds like an Alexander Haig moment.
Yeah. Well,
so I don't know. But does he deserve all of that you just mentioned? Because it also sounds like that's a bit much.
Well, I mean, you got to look at it this way.
Yes.
These firefighters, part of the Rutherford County Fire and Rescue Team, they have their commander. They have their orders.
Yes.
They're following one command. All of a sudden, this other firefighter shows up, starts grabbing equipment off of one of the trucks, and according to the arrest affidavit, the command there was saying, stop what you're doing.
Okay,
and
you know
he
what?
ignored them.
Yeah, then I don't know the severity or the appropriateness of the charges, but sounds like the dude was a little off his rocker.
Who knows? I don't know what he was doing.
By the way, 1998 reminds us all about AOC. I'm the boss.
Yeah, she said she was the boss.
She sure did.
Maybe this fella thought he was the boss.
Maybe AOC should have been arrested. All right, maybe that's too far. All right, so the other one, Taco Bell in the Great Smoky Mountains.
There is none. According to one visitor,
so are we talking
they were
about
quite upset about that.
Are we talking about in the Smoky Mountains or in like Pigeon Forge? We probably don't know, but is there really no Taco Bell? I mean, you can't get away from those things.
That's just according to what this outside magazine survey found, was that one of the visitor complaints for the Great Smoky Mountains was that there was no Taco Bell.
That is so strange.
Yeah. Like here are the complaints.
Yes.
Park staff, including volunteers, they keep you away from the wildlife. Well, they're saving your life, you moron.
I can't take my selfie with that black bear.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Really? Who the hell did they talk to?
So here's another one. Overall, there was nothing here that I saw or that was open that would ever make me want to go here again. If you like long lines in traffic, waiting 20 minutes to use the toilet, and not being able to get out of your car, then you'll like this park. And then right after that, there was no Taco Bell.
Are these people from like Illinois?
I don't know.
Like I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, okay, so if you're like a city slicker and you want to take a selfie with a black bear,
yeah,
while eating some Taco Bell,
I would. You know what? If I'm park staff, I'm going to be like, go ahead, make my day. Hey, everybody get the popcorn.
In fact, sir, why don't you take that Taco Bell and go feed that black bear over there?
Watch this dip crap from Chicago try and, feed a black bear or take a selfie with the black bear. Let's all just watch and see what happens.
Speaking of bears, here's another complaint. Not impressed. Mountains all over the place, trees everywhere, and the bears are tiny. Smallest bears I've ever seen in my life.
And they won't look that way, sir, when they're trying to bite you. Hey, why don't you go play with that cub right there? Mother won't mind.
Oh, yeah.
I'm dying to know who these people, you know who they are? They're Biden voters. They're Biden voters.
They are. Yeah, that's right.
Can I just say?
Come here, little fella.
Can I just say that?
Bears love me.
I love. Now, Pigeon Forge apparently.
They've got to have a Taco Bell. I've got to look this up.
Now, 4826 says there is a Taco Bell in Pigeon Forge.
There's got to be.
7987. Taco Bell first, then a good long hike. That's going to end well.
At least there's plenty of leaves.
At least the bear will run from you. Egad, I think we'll move on.
You ever had to use leaves in that capacity, Ken Weaver or Johnny B?
No.
No.
Ken? I have. When I was in, true story. Okay. I just sounded like Biden, but it's true. When I was in I was a terrible Boy Scout. But we went camping. And let's just say nobody packed the toilet paper.
Pre-COVID, obviously.
Was there no water you could jump in and maybe swim or anything?
You know, I was like
have a natural bidet?
9 or 10. No, there was no bidet.
All right.
And I don't know exactly what happened or where the bathroom was, because usually when you go to the when you go on a camping trip with the Boy Scouts, there's going to be, it's like it's like glamping.
Well, there will at least be a toilet over a hole in the ground.
Yeah, we went on a hike, and you know what? Listen, when nature calls, nature calls.
Yes, it does, brother.
And I'm just going to tell you, it did not feel good. She'd heard me telling my mom about that when I got home. Yeah, what? It's like, yeah, I had to do that.
Yeah, Mom.
What, were they tree leaves that you grabbed? Because sometimes you got to be careful of the kind of leaves you.
Oh, yeah. Right. Can you imagine if it was like poison ivy?
Ooh. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, you thought it was painful before.
Woo, could you imagine that?
Well, luckily, it was the time of year where the leaves were like nice and green and leafy, as opposed to like the crumbly, like in fall, where they would just like crumble.
Yeah.
I think. So anyway, whatever. Moving on.
I had an experience.
Did you?
Yeah, this was at church camp. And
one time at church camp?
Yeah, it was at church camp in Glorieta, New Mexico. And these two buddies of mine, we weren't paying attention. We didn't follow the rules. We didn't bring our own water. Well, the next day we were thirsty. There happened to be a little creek. These two buddies of mine, they take big old scoops of water out of this creek, drink it, and they're just fine. Not Ken Weaver. It was a 3-mile hike down that mountain. And let me tell you something. That is the worst experience I have ever had in my life. I made it.
Yeah.
I made it back to the church camp, but nobody saw me for a couple of days. I got real acquainted with Def Leppard's Photograph. A buddy of mine had the cassette, and I listened to it over and over again as I went back and forth down the hall.
You know, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
That's right.
Never do that again. But nothing happened to those two guys. Nothing happened to them.
Well, what was in the creek?
Something that apparently makes you not feel well.
Okay. Something that made you had to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good.
And I wasn't about to do that, what you did. I wasn't about to.
Listen.
I mean,
People are making fun of me because I'm like the California guy, going camping. That's rich. I went camping in California.
That's actually pretty good on you, though, Brother Dan.
I would listen. I was in the Boy Scouts. You know what Okay, this is ironic. You know what the Boy Scouts motto is? Be prepared.
That's right.
Yeah.
Clearly, I wasn't.
Well,
motto of the
nature
story.
provided.
Motto of the story is, whenever you go camping, bring some extra toilet paper.
Yeah, that's always a good one.
Can I tell you something that's weird? And this is like the show within the show within the show.
The show within the show.
So there is something happening in this studio, and I don't know what it is, but my headphones keep just going out. The volume just keeps mysteriously dropping. And so I say something, and then I don't hear anything. And I figure that you guys are just not responding. But it's whatever the heck is happening in this studio where the audio is just dropping. Johnny, are you punking me? Like,
Sure.
Can you control my audio from in there?
You know it, Dan.
You're trying to
Every day.
sabotage me.
Every day.
There's a big red button that says "Mess with Dan."
Yeah, mess with Dan.
Mess with the host. Just turn down his headphones. I don't know what is going on in here. Hey, you guys ready for Elvis Presley? Courtesy of like AI.
That's right, baby. All ready for Big E.
Maybe.
Explain
it.
Because apparently now, you know how ABBA was doing this, this show, and they're going to be, basically computer generated. Elvis is going to make a comeback via the same kind of technology with a London AI show. The King of Rock and Roll is set to conquer a new stage, artificial intelligence. A holographic AI version of Elvis Presley will regale London audiences from a November stage show. They're calling it the Elvis Evolution. They're working on it now. They hope to have it done by, November of 2024. Would you guys go see that? I'm so mixed on this whole artificial intelligence performances. I'm mixed on it because on the one hand, I do understand that people, I guess, miss seeing Elvis Presley, and a younger generation could be introduced to the King of Rock and Roll. But at the same time, I don't know, would that artist approve of this kind of a thing? I don't know. Is it the same thing as leaving recordings behind? I don't know.
Yeah.
Would you go see if Elvis Presley, a hologram of Elvis, was going to play at Bridgestone? Would you go see that?
If they put some Taco Bell in the lobby, sure.
And
sure,
there's plenty of
absolutely.
toilet paper.
Taco Bell and toilet paper for everybody.
Yeah.
Probably not.
I
don't know.
I'm going to ask the
I
super
wouldn't.
texter. Super texters, would you go see Elvis Presley?
It just feels wrong.
If he was, it does feel wrong, but I can't.
It's macabre.
I can't put my finger on it.
See, I liked what Waylon Jennings said to RCA. They were putting out, after Elvis's death, they were going to put out a duets album, and they wanted Waylon to be in on it, and Waylon apparently responded, "Ask Elvis. If it's okay with him, I'm all in."
There you go. There you go.
I don't know about that, man. I just don't.
Now, if you could bring back one artist, which one would it be?
Bon Scott.
Okay, that's predictable for
John
you,
Lennon.
Ken. John Lennon.
Yeah.
Very good.
Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, Freddie Mercury.
John Candy.
All right, I got one for you. Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah?
If I could, bring back.
Sure.
Probably. No, I don't. Could you bring back a talk show host? Could you do that?
Well, I mean, you can bring back Elvis.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but those are songs.
That's
but
true.
like if you wanted to bring back a topical talk show host, like a Rush Limbaugh,
Sure.
who, by the way, was my absolute hero in radio. But how would you bring him back? Because the news is constantly updating and constantly changing, so you can't take what Rush said, 4 years ago and apply it to today. Some of the general principles do remain, but you don't know as time goes on because there's always different nuances to every single story and different perspective and so forth.
I thought you were talking about bringing back to life.
Oh, well, that too, perhaps. I don't know. Either way.
Yeah. Yeah, because no, you couldn't.
No,
not with everything. I mean, Rush For one thing, he doesn't give a rat's ass about what's going on down here right now.
No, he's got a far better life.
And I'm sure if he was given the choice, he would say, no, thank you.
I don't think I want to go back, sir.
Yeah, and of course, people mentioning Phil Valentine as well. Yeah, trust me, folks, I get it. But there's a lot of musicians that they could do this with. I mean, ABBA's still alive, and they're doing it.
Well, Hendrix, I think they're going to do it with. Ooh. They're talking about doing it.
Okay, Hendrix, they're going to do it with as well. I mean, they can do it with actors, too. I read that they're going to try to do it with Bruce Willis, who has his own challenges right now with that disease that he has, where his mind is just going.
So bring them back in new roles?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they did that, or maybe similar roles. Like, for example, in Star Wars, they brought back that old general guy, whatever his name was.
Yeah.
In that one movie.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, they did it in Ghostbusters, too, with, what's his name?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Oh, what? We're getting really specific,
Ramis?
aren't we?
Yeah, Harold Ramis.
Harold Ramis. There you go. That's exactly right.
Egon, wasn't that his name?
Yes, Egon. Now, that was a good Ghostbusters.
Yes, it was. I have to admit, Dan, you were exactly right. And I did tear up.
Did you tear up?
A little bit, yeah.
Just a little bit?
Yeah.
I openly cried.
Well, Johnny was eating peppers.
All right. Who's doing, just very quickly, who's doing what this weekend? I am finally taking down my 4 Christmas trees. My Christmas trees are still up.
Way to go, Brother Dan Mandis.
Well, don't feel alone that somebody across the way from us has their Christmas tree up.
Yeah, and they dance in front of it.
And they dance in front of it.
You guys still have your Christmas trees up?
Nope.
I don't think so.
I only have one Christmas tree, and I have already put it up.
Johnny, did you say I don't think so?
Well, we have
Were
a
you
small
home this morning?
We had a small one.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I was. But I don't pay attention to the small Christmas tree.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to make my wife very angry today.
Johnny just rolled in from wherever he was at.
That's right.
I was going to say,
That's
I
right.
think so.
I think it's still up. I don't know.
Oh.
Is any college football this weekend?
I don't know if there's any college football. I think there's the Under Armour game where all of the highly recruited high school athletes are going to play.
All right.
There'll even be some commitments. Now everybody's getting ready for the national championship on Monday.
Yeah.
Oh, is that on Monday?
That is on Monday.
That's going to be
Dan Mandis.
Michigan and
the Washington Huskies.
The Washington Huskies, the Huskies of Washington. And what time is that game? It's at like 8 o'clock at night.
I don't know. Let's check with Mac.
Yeah, Mac will know.
Oh, hey, Johnny, can you call Mason? Mac's going to call in sick on Tuesday morning. We're just kidding. We love Mac. 554 on WTN.
6 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We're going to tell you what to expect from two storm systems moving our way during the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. America's top diplomat going back to the Middle East as tensions there continue to rise amid the ongoing Israeli-Hamas conflict. Get a load of what happened last night.
Rebels based in Yemen have launched yet another attack on a commercial ship, this time using a one-way unmanned attack boat, and no one was hurt. Now, the rebels backed by Iran have attacked several commercial ships in recent weeks in support of Hamas. The attacks are forcing ships to take long detours, and that's driving up shipping costs. Global shipping rates are up more than 60% in the last week, and from Asia to the west coast of the U.S., rates are up 30%.
That's Ike Jaichi reporting. By the way, Secretary of State Antony Blinken on this next trip to the Middle East has stops planned in Turkey, Jordan, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates to address concerns about a wider conflict there. Right now in Nashville, Metro Police have reassigned 10 police officers who were under review for the leak of some of that Covenant school shooters' documents to a podcaster. No reason given for the reassignment, but these detectives will no longer be part of the Special Investigations Unit. Metro Police says there's no evidence that any current employee had anything to do with the leak of some of those documents, but they say they tried to interview a former detective who did have photos of the material, but that person refused to cooperate. Channel 4 says they got mixed reaction to a new bill that would ban emotional support animals from hotels and restaurants in Nashville that are not trained or being trained to perform tasks or work for a person with a disability.
I go to coffee shops almost every single day. I love hanging out with dogs, too. And what's the point of an emotional support animal if not to be emotionally supported?
I think that Nashville, we have a big popularity of taking our dogs into grocery stores, into restaurants. I see it both ways. I have a dog, but I do not take my dog into restaurants because I do not want to be around animals when I eat.
That legislation filed by Lobelville Republican State Rep Kirk Haston and Savannah Republican State Senator Paige Whaley. And from the files of You Just Can't Please Everyone, Outside Magazine compiled a list of visitor reviews to some of our nation's national parks. One of the complaints against Tennessee's Smoky Mountains stands out. The Tennessean says among them, there was no Taco Bell. Tennessee's Smoky Mountains National Park is the most visited national park in America with nearly 13 million sightseers in 2022 alone. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, beaconcm.com. Here's Jim Ryan.
Despite a fractional gain for the Dow Jones on Thursday, the major stock averages are on course to snap a 9-week winning streak. The S&P 500 fell 0.33% yesterday. The Nasdaq Composite gave up just over 0.5%. Today's unemployment numbers could draw the Federal Reserve closer to cutting interest rates. The Labor Department is expected to report slowing U.S. job growth and lower annual wage hikes in December. Wall Street is betting the Fed will begin trimming interest rates as early as March. Carrefour, the huge European supermarket chain, is protesting rising prices by pulling several Pepsi products, including Pepsi, Lay's, and Doritos, from its stores in France, Italy, Spain, and Belgium. Through the pandemic, some companies boasted about their ability to raise prices without significantly damaging sales. Grocers in the U.S. have battled with suppliers to lower food costs. Pepsi says it's been discussing the situation with Carrefour.
All right. Dow futures ahead of this morning's opening bell, down 79. S&P futures off 12. NASDAQ down 60. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
We talk news. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
6:07 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. Finally a Friday. Hope you're doing well. Remember, you can always watch us on YouTube, Facebook, 997WTN.com as well. And we've got all kinds of apps out there as well. You can find all the links at 997WTN.com. So one of the things that I find fascinating is that Democrats clearly believe anyway that they have found their template on how to get rid of one Donald Trump. And they're using the same template to try to get rid of other Republicans as well. Now, in the 5 o'clock hour, and I know a lot of people are just joining us here in the 6 o'clock, so I'm going to replay this commercial. It is the first commercial for Joe Biden as we enter 2024, and it's a campaign video. And basically what Joe Biden is doing, and I know that you'll be shocked by this, basically what Joe Biden is doing is he is parroting what he did in 2020 regarding this supposed threat to democracy. Listen.
I've made the preservation of American democracy the central issue of my presidency. I believe in free and fair elections and the right to vote fairly and have your vote counted. There's something dangerous happening in America. There's an extremist movement that does not share the basic beliefs in our democracy. All of us are being asked right now, what will we do to maintain our democracy? History's watching. The world is watching. And most important, our children and grandchildren will hold us responsible. The Vice President and I have supported voting rights since day one of this administration, and I ask every American to join me in this cause. America is still a place of possibilities where the power resides with we, the people. That's our soul. We are the United States of America. There is nothing beyond our capacity when we act together. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
One of the things that I thought was interesting is, and I mentioned in the 5 o'clock hour, I've got another angle that I'm going to do here, but one of the things that I did mention in the 5 o'clock hour, just so you know, is that it feels like a give up by the Biden administration in the sense that there's so many other things that are going on in this country that the American people are really worried about. Yet here he is going back to the same tired talking point. And so maybe, perhaps, just maybe, this will be a jump the shark moment for the American people with Joe Biden. So that's part of the conversation. The other thing he said in there, and you heard it, where he says, well, the Biden administration, we've been supporting voting rights since day one, or something to that effect. And when I heard that, one of the first things that I thought of was all of that Jim Crow 2.0 BS that was going on in Georgia. Remember all that? And how that was an absolute blatant lie. And everybody knew it was a lie. Yet here you are, Joe Biden now saying once again that they've been preserving voting rights, when in reality what they've been doing is lying about the Republicans. And as you know, because you listen to Nashville's Morning News, when that whole story broke and then they had the election in Georgia and all of those racist Republicans were trying to suppress the black vote, what did they see? Record turnout for African Americans, for black folks in Georgia. So they were proven to be liars. But there's more to this story. Because the 14th Amendment, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which is something that we've been all talking about, and certainly I have, is now being used not only to try to get Donald Trump off of the ballot, but others as well. Now, y'all know what's going on in Colorado. You also know what's going on in Maine. But here's a headline from the New York Post. It's not just Donald Trump. Democrats are moving to bar Republicans from ballots nationwide. Yeah, it's an article from Jonathan Turley. It's from the New York Post. So, and by the way, I did tweet this article out. So you've got, of course, what is going on with Donald Trump, but the Democrats are trying to bounce hundreds of Republicans out of Congress using the same rationale, using the same justification. And as I have painstakingly pointed out to you, the 14th Amendment does not apply to Donald Trump, and I don't believe that it applies to elected members of Congress either. But that's what the Democrats are trying to do. Jonathan Turley, again, writes about this in the New York Post, where he talks about how they're trying to bar Republican Scott Perry from the ballot in Pennsylvania. Turley was on Fox News talking about all this.
No, he's basically being accused of being a supporter of insurrection. Right. So it's like being a fellow traveler back in the McCarthy period. And that's become sort of norm now, is that it's not just that you were an insurrectionist, but you supported them, either by voting against certification or doubting the election of Joe Biden. Those are protected acts. They're constitutionally protected acts. And yet they are cited in these filings as evidence that you're either an insurrectionist or a fellow traveler.
Yeah, and the guy who is trying to remove Scott Perry, and Turley's right. I mean, we've been talking about what the squad has been trying to do to remove Republicans, but we'll get into that in a sec. But the guy who's trying to remove Scott Perry, his name is Gene Stilp. And so one of the things that old Gene has done is he's actually burned MAGA flags with swastikas outside the courthouse. So clearly this guy is unhinged. But they're so driven by Trump derangement syndrome, these are the kind of things that they do. Now, again, Democrats have been trying to bar hundreds of members of Congress after January 6th. So they're going to keep playing the card. The squad has been behind a lot of this, trying to remove Republicans from their ballots in 2024, because this is something that they continue to do, the squad, and Cori Bush is one, and they're getting dozens of sponsors for the bills as well. Representative Bill Pascrell, a Democrat out of New Jersey, sought to bar 126 members of Congress under the same theory for challenging the election before January 6th of 2021. So basically what's happening is that you have the Democrats pulling out all the stops to keep not only Donald Trump off of the ballot, but also all of these other candidates as well. Turley talks about the 14th Amendment and how it does not apply here. And he was on with Larry Kudlow on Fox Business.
In the past, the 14th Amendment theory has been something of a parlor game for professors. It was an interesting idea. And then it became a very dangerous idea when you had 4 justices of the Colorado Supreme Court embrace it. Now, the good news is that's a court with 7 democratically appointed justices, and 3 of those justices refused. And actually, there was a stinging, visceral dissent asking what the majority thought they were doing here. And then you have Maine, and that's not really a decision. It's in terms of a judicial decision. That is a Secretary of State who has been really hitting Trump and hitting what she calls the insurrection since January 6th. So they knew what they were going to get from her when they filed to remove Trump from the main ballot. But now it's going to go to the courts, and real judges are going to have to look at this. And the vast majority of judges have rejected this because it's unfounded and it's dangerous.
Or as we like to call BS. And so we'll get into a little bit more of what Jonathan Turley has to say. Oh, and by the way, I'll also point out that the Democrats have a long history of denying elections as well. It is 6:15. Time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. All right, thank you very much. Partly cloudy today, a high near 50. Cloudy this weekend, highs 47 both days. Rain on Saturday, 27 now. At Super Talk 99.7 WTN, talking about how the Democrats, they found the template, folks. They found the template, and the template is to use the 14th Amendment to try and keep Democrats, try to keep Republicans off of the ballot, not only Donald Trump, but also Republicans nationwide. And so one of the things that they're doing, and I just played you audio from Jonathan Turley, and I've spoken with Hans von Spakovsky and a lot of other folks talking about how the 14th Amendment, Section 3, does not apply to elected officials and certainly not to Donald Trump. But they also ignore the fact that they themselves, the Democrats, have done the same exact thing over the years in trying to prevent elections from being certified. Jonathan Turley points out former Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Dick Durbin praised the effort by then Senator Barbara Boxer, Democrat out of California, organizing a challenge to the certification of President George W. Bush's 2004 reelection. Remember Jamie Raskin, the Democrat out of Maryland, sought to block certification of the 2016 election result, where Donald Trump won. Particularly ironic, of course, since he is a leading voice in calling for Donald Trump to be disqualified now. And by the way, I've also got audio. I'm going to spare you. I've played it 1,000 times, and other hosts have too, of Democrats denying elections in interviews. You've heard the audio. I've played it a bazillion times. But you've got Hillary, you've got Jimmy Carter, you've got Joe Biden, you've got Kamala Harris, all these folks calling Donald Trump an illegitimate president. And we're talking earlier about how the Democrats, they don't want, by and large, they don't want Joe Biden to run. The rank and file want another candidate to run against the current president. They want more choices because they know that Joe Biden is an absolute train wreck because of his record and because of all of these signs that he is aging and aging badly. And so Jonathan Turley talks about that, and he talks about how the Democrats are really guilty of trying to destroy democracy.
Yeah, it's hard to say you're defending democracy when every action you take is to prevent it from being practiced. Now, you got to keep in mind, of course, that most Democrats in polls have said that they don't want Biden, that they want other choices. And so the party elite is saying that's a dangerous thing. So let's not give them a choice. This will be a one flavor ice cream stand. You either take Biden or you go hungry.
I mean, he's right. Nothing that Jonathan Turley is saying there that is wrong. By the way, I was talking earlier about some of the latest polling from Real Clear Politics and in other places. And just to tell you, I know that the polling is all over the place. But, you look at the polling from yesterday. President Biden, his job approval rating, 56% of Americans disapprove of Joe Biden. Only 40, and that's by Rasmussen, 43% approve of the president. And so when Turley talks about how, by and large, the Democrats want another option, they do. They want another option. In a general election, Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, Trump 42%, Joe Biden 41%. So that is Donald Trump up 1. 2024 presidential nomination for the Republican side, Morning Consult. Donald Trump is at 66. He's in Iowa. I think it's today, right? Trump is in Iowa today. And he is out there campaigning. And he is just, on fire. 66% for Donald Trump. Nikki Haley is at 11%. DeSantis is 11%. Ramaswamy is at 6%. Chris Christie's at 4%. And Asa Hutchinson, why? 1%. Chris Christie's at 4%. Now, Nikki Haley versus Joe Biden. Now, this is interesting. This is the Economist YouGov. This came out yesterday. In a general election, Nikki Haley versus Joe Biden wins 41 to 36%. Now, that is counter to what we've seen in previous polling. Because in previous polling, as you know, and again, I know, it's all over the place. But in previous polling, the big story has been that Nikki Haley would beat Joe Biden by a wider margin than Donald Trump would. But according to the economist YouGov, Biden is at 41%. Nikki Haley is at 36% in this general election. Same day, general election, Trump versus Biden. Morning Consult has Trump at 42, Biden at 41. See what else is up here. We've got direction of the country. 63% of the American people believe that the country is on the wrong track. I want to know who these 27% are that believe that the country is in the right direction. Remember yesterday we were joking about how I needed a progressive friend, and I was actually taking applications for a progressive friend. If you missed that, I'm sure it was really enthralling. But I didn't get one email. If you people missed it, I literally asked for a progressive friend. And that if somebody could email me, Dan at 99.7 WTN, and please, let me know if you'd be willing to be my progressive friend. The reason why I'm doing that is because clearly it is only those nut jobs that think that the country is going in the right direction. So I want to know who it is that thinks that the country is going in the right direction. I mean, you could make the argument that the economy is doing better. But by and large, we still have a very challenged economy. People still have the credit card debt from when inflation was at 9.3%. I could go on. But that's part of what's going on, friends. So if you're a progressive and you'd like to explain to me how you feel like the economy, or I should say the direction of the country is going in the right direction, I would love to know how you can justify that, because clearly it's not. 624. Ken Weaver, what's coming up in the news at 6:30?
Well, America's top diplomat is on another trip to the Middle East as concerns continue to rise that the Israel-Hamas war will spread in the region. There's been more attacks outside of Israel and Hamas. Metro Police not explaining why 10 detectives they questioned over the leak of some Covenant school shooters documents are being reassigned. These stories and more coming up at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken. 624, Nashville's Morning News. Oh, did you hear the latest on Epstein? I've got it for you coming up. A bunch of new names. I think, 328 new documents were dropped. One of the things that I've always found fascinating is this notion, and the left will say, oh, it's just a conspiracy theory. Is it just a conspiracy theory that Jeffrey Epstein was a spy for Israel? Details straight ahead on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Dan Mandis here. I am so happy that I'm starting 2024 on the right track with Awaken 180. Now, I know that it's a holiday tradition to put a bunch of pounds on, but because I have learned the right way to eat with Awaken 180, my body is trained to eat the right way no matter the time of year. I didn't need to make a New Year's resolution to lose weight because I've been working with Awaken 180 since last spring. And I've lost my 20 pounds. And yes, I've been able to keep it off the right way with Awaken 180. And by the way, the people that I know who are on Awaken 180, that's going to be me, Belle, and Pamela. We've all hit our goals, and you will too. Now, I remember when food used to have control over me. It was a big issue. But now, these days, it is the other way around. And the power that you feel is just amazing to finally be able to take control of your life. So do what we did here at WTN and thousands of others across Tennessee and America and discover the Awaken 180 difference. We've all succeeded, and you will too. But that first reach out is on you. Find Awaken 180 online. Please, as always, tell him Dan Mandis told you to reach out. Awaken 180 online. It's awaken180weightloss.com. That is awaken180weightloss.com. 628 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, talking about any number of things in the previous segment. Jason says, Dan, the economy is so bad, I know of a talk show host who is stealing gum.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jason.
It's getting rough out there.
It is getting rough out there, isn't it?
We'll talk for gum.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's funny, Johnny. Very good. Thank you for that. Other people say, this is 6254. Dan, you might want to prepare yourself because Biden will win in 2024. The Republican Party is a joke. They are not united on any issues. So divided, they will fall. So, Brother Dan, you might want to get your ducks in order. I hate it, but it's going to happen. Do I need to step up my gum theft? Is that what I need to do?
Yeah. You could offer it to the ducks you need to get in order.
Maybe I could. Anyway, is Jeffrey Epstein an Israeli spy? Was he an Israeli spy? We'll talk about the latest on that and a whole lot more straight ahead. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
6:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories this Friday morning. Going to tell you about the two storm systems heading our way during the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. America's top diplomat is on another trip to the Middle East amid growing concern the Israel-Hamas war could spread. For instance,
the U.S. military launched the drone strike in Baghdad in response to the recent attacks on American forces. Now, the attack yesterday killed a militia leader blamed for targeting U.S. forces in Iraq. Tensions have been rising across the region since the start of Israel's war with Hamas.
Yeah, Ike Ejaichi says Secretary of State Antony Blinken left Washington last night with planned stops in Turkey, Jordan, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. Here in Nashville, Metro Police not explaining why 10 detectives they questioned over the leak of some of the Covenant school shooters' documents are being reassigned. The department claims there's no evidence any current officer or employee had anything to do with the leak, but no explanation for why these 10 detectives are no longer going to be part of the Special Investigations Unit. Metro Police did try to interview a former detective they say had photos of the material, but Metro says that person refused to cooperate, and because that person is no longer employed with the department, that person cannot be compelled to talk. Some Tennessee lawmakers want to give teachers body cameras to alert law enforcement who would be able to see real time what is happening in the classroom. But J.C. Bowman with the Professional Educators Association of Tennessee telling Channel 4 some school district administrators are wary of that technology.
We've talked to some superintendents that don't like that because it does bring some liability issues to the district if you record somebody doing something.
Tennessee teachers could be wearing these devices if the legislation passes the General Assembly, which reconvenes on Tuesday. And back here in Nashville, a firefighter's in trouble for allegedly interfering with Rutherford County firefighters at a home on December 18th. According to an arrest affidavit, Nashville firefighter Jacob Wellbaum showed up there at the house fire in Rutherford County, grabbed some gear and breathing equipment from the Rutherford County fire engine, allegedly ignored orders from Rutherford County authorities to stop, but entered the home anyway and started shouting orders to everyone. News 2 says Wellbaum was charged with 5 counts of reckless endangerment, 1 count of disorderly conduct. He's still working for the Nashville Fire Department, but not making emergency calls, and he's working with not working with the public at this time. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next.
You paid for your session and apply it to a Shoot 270 range membership. You've got to check these folks out, the incredible value of those memberships and those ranges. You can find out all about it, shoot270.com. The world-famous McGill's Glock store, minutes from the airport and worth the drive from anywhere, shoot270.com. 6:35, Nashville's morning news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Do you think that Jeffrey Epstein was a spy for Israel? We're finding out more and more. And these accusations, realize that a lot of these things that are coming out about Jeffrey Epstein, they've been out there. We all knew about Bill Clinton, too, by the way. And so this is a situation with Epstein where there's a lot of people that are just getting caught up on all things Jeffrey Epstein. And so it's obviously big in the news. There's another 300 or so pages that were released yesterday. And by the way, there's still more to come. But let me ask you this question. Why exactly was Bill Clinton so passionate about protecting Jeffrey Epstein? Now, what's interesting is, this is CNN that's on the TV in here. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they've covered this and I have not seen it. But one of the things that we found out yesterday, it was in the news yesterday, was that Bill Clinton apparently marched into Vanity Fair's office and actually threatened staff at Vanity Fair because they were about to write a big story about Jeffrey Epstein. Virginia Roberts claimed that in a latest bombshell court documents, according to the Daily Mail. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, because some people say, why would Bill Clinton do that in such a, public forum? I mean, wouldn't that look a little suspicious? And yes, it would. And some people say that that did happen. Other people say it did not happen. I don't know. But that's a big enough story that is in the Daily Mail and other places this morning. But that's number one. But number two, Prince Andrew, by the way. So here's what's funny about Prince Andrew. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Andrew. Give me 45 seconds. Because it's obvious that he is, basically screwed. I mean, and deservedly so. I mean, he's lucky he's not going to jail. And by the way, he should. But apparently one of the news stories out this morning is that the royal family is going to kick him out of his really big palace, and they're going to send him into like a smaller palace. Now, I don't know how big the smaller palace is, or the castle, or whatever they call these things. But Prince Andrew, I think, unless they throw him in jail, which they should, he's going to be just fine. He's just going to have to get used to, smaller living quarters. They say that he will never return to the royal fold and will be forced out of the royal lodge after these documents relating to his pedophile behavior. So that's the latest on Prince Andrew. But there's this story about whether or not he was working for Israel as a spy. Jeffrey Epstein's brother doesn't think blackmail tapes actually exist. But here's the thing, is that there have been stories out there that one of the reasons why Jeffrey Epstein did what he did, which was hook up all of these, very important politicians and, business leaders and leaders of industry and so forth, was so that he had some compromising information on them. That's part of what they're saying. In these new documents released, there are allegations that at least one of the girls claimed that Epstein was going to use these relationships to blackmail world and financial leaders. So you've got presidents and heads of corporations as well that would be compromised. So let's play this out. Bill Clinton storms into the offices of Vanity Fair and threatens the staff if they don't pull that story about Jeffrey Epstein. Well, how do we know that Epstein didn't go to Clinton and say, you better get this pulled by your friends at Vanity Fair, or there's going to be some information leaked about you? And by the way, also, it stands to reason that the allegations are that, and this is part of what we saw in the paperwork, is that these massages, because you had all of these underage girls coming in and they were, given massages. Well, the massages were leading to other things. Let's just leave it at that. In July of 2021, there is a long article in Rolling Stone about Epstein's dealings on the foreign stage. And this was, again, in Rolling Stone. Now, say what you will about Rolling Stone, but they did a deep dive into these allegations that Epstein was a spy for Israel. I mean, they did a deep dive into this. This was written by Vicky Ward back in 2021. 4 separate sources told her on the record that Epstein's dealings in the arms world in the 1980s had led them to work for multiple governments, including the Israelis. Now, some of these sources are more reliable than others, they say, but the gist of the claims is that Epstein was introduced to Israeli leaders who then allegedly used Epstein as the equivalent of an old-fashioned Russian sleeper, someone who could be useful in an influence campaign. The source or sources, who range from former arms dealers to former spies, suggest that Epstein, who lacked any sort of moral compass, decided to go one step further and compromise influential people by recording them doing things they wouldn't want to be made public. Makes sense, doesn't it? Because if you're somebody with no moral compass and you want influence and you want as much money as you can possibly get, and you want to do it, without any, dealing with any laws or what have you, then what better way to do that than to get compromising information on the very people that could help you? This isn't all the information, by the way, that's coming out. According to a court record, and it was released on January 3rd, documents for 2 of these does, Jane Doe, whatever, 107 and 110, will not be immediately released. One was granted an extension until January 22nd for her appeal about the release, and the other's appeal is still under review. So this isn't all the names, and this isn't all the information, and this is not the first time nor the last time that we will hear about these allegations that Jeffrey Epstein maybe was working for Israel as a spy. Now, here's the thing, is that if he was working for Israel as a spy, well, Israel is supposed to be, our friend, our ally. So if Epstein is working for Israel, then why would, I'm going to answer this question, by the way, then why would they need all of this compromising information on all of these, politicians and so forth? It's because this is what governments do. Whether it's America, whether it is Israel, whether it is Russia, I mean, you name it, this is just part of certainly China, this is part of what countries do, is they get this compromising information on some of these politicians and some of these, heads of industry. Now, how were the girls recruited? Among the documents released on yesterday, is a 2016 deposition from a guy by the name of Joseph Recarey, a former detective with the Palm Beach Police Department who led the investigation into allegations against Epstein of sex abuse and trafficking that culminated in that 2008 plea deal. In the deposition, Recarey states that he interviewed about 30 girls who were either asked to give massages at Epstein's home. Now, only one of them had actual masseuse experiences. And the direct order, he says, was that when they went to perform those massages, it was for a lot more. And then I will bring up the photograph of Bill Clinton that I tweeted out a couple of days ago and that is all over the internet, getting a massage. And let's just say he looked happy. Recarey testified with that and other things. And of the 30 to 33 young women he interviewed, he said only one, whom he described as older. I wonder what that means in Jeffrey Epstein's world. Is older like 19? Just asking. One was older and had massage experience, and the majority were under 18. I guess so. So I guess in Jeffrey Epstein's world, older would be, 19 or 20. Old hags. I'm just kidding. Majority were under 18. Some told him they were recruited with the prospect of becoming a model for Victoria's Secret. That's how they pulled them in. And I saw the documentary on this a while ago. So, yeah, basically what they would do is they would tell these girls to go get their friends, and they would get money if they recruited them and brought them sort of into the club, if you will. And part of that was telling them that they could become models for Victoria's Secret, Carey said. He also said the young women told him they were offered money to recruit more girls. The 18-page released deposition does have large gaps where pages were not included. So, again, a lot of this stuff is finally gaining traction. They have had documentary after documentary on all of this. And, you know, it's really creepy that you have so many of these men who, and there's women on these, on these depositions as well, and the interrogatories and, all of this. And so there's women apparently involved as well. And it is unseemly. And you've got all of these, mostly Democrats, folks. Is it okay to make this political? Because it does boggle my mind that so many of these people that are being named are Democrats. There's only one, if I'm not mistaken, there's only one that I saw. There's probably more, but only one that was, a big-time Republican donor. The rest of these folks, Democrats that gave a lot of money to the likes of Chuck Schumer, Hillary Clinton as well. And you know what? I do think it's okay to point out that a lot of these people are Democrats, because I think that if the shoe was on the other foot, then they would be all about pointing out that they were conservatives. So turnabout is fair play. The real tragedy here is that you had all of these girls that were clearly being victimized, even if Bill Clinton never went any further than a massage. I'd be willing to bet that old Bill knew what was going on, and he didn't say a damn thing. And so there's a lot of heartbreak in this Jeffrey Epstein story. There's the girls that were victimized, and there's all of these powerful men and women that didn't say a thing. 647, time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. Thank you very much. It's 647. As far as your weather goes, partly cloudy and highs near 50. Cloudy this weekend, highs 47 both days. Look for some rain on Saturday, tomorrow. Appreciate you listening to WTN, where it is 27 degrees. This is interesting. Ken and Johnny, you guys can chime in on this, because I do find this fascinating. What do you think about this? A Los Angeles man was denied a green card over his tattoos. And now the Supreme Court may be taking up his case. Now, this guy was illegal alien trying to come into our country. And he had a tattoo. And his tattoos collectively made up the image for MS-13. And so I will say, to the Biden administration's credit, I think, they said, no, we're not going to let this guy in. Clearly, he is a MS-13 gang member, according to his tattoos. Now, what I think part of the interesting part of this story, prominent Los Angeles civil rights attorney Sandra Munoz spent her 8th Christmas countries apart from her husband, Luis Encesio Cordero, after the federal government denied him a visa, in part, they say, because of his tattoos. Well, part of this is like a sob story for this prominent civil rights attorney. Sandra Munoz, if you'd like to, go to where your husband is, or your husband is, please go. Go ahead and go. There's no reason why you need to stay here. Go to your MS-13 gang member husband in whatever godforsaken place he is. So they were conducting a body search on this guy, and the tattoos showed that, yes, he was an MS-13 gang member. And so they appealed it. It went to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Not shocking. They sided with the gang member. And so now that decision was challenged by the Biden administration. And so now the case is headed to the Supreme Court. They say on Friday, which is today, thank God, justices are scheduled to review the case and decide whether to take up this case. If they decide to take up the case, then obviously the decision will be made. If they decline, the appeals court decision would stand, and the lawyer for this guy believes he would probably be allowed to return to live in the United States for the first time in 9 years. So if you've got tattoos that clearly state that you are a member of MS-13, or you were at one time, then, and the guy was probably from El Salvador, but we have every right to keep you out. I mean, you are screaming that I'm a criminal, right? However, I will also say that people do change. I don't know this guy's history. But for me, if you've got MS-13 tattoos, then yes, I believe that we have every right to keep you out of this country. Absolutely. Now, here's the other thing, is that he could say, number one, I've changed. Number two, this collection of tattoos has a whole different meaning for me. They do say, by the way, the outcome of the case could have ripple effects for immigrants like this guy, because it's so rare to win challenges to the government's visa denials. But his attorneys fear that if the Supreme Court sides with the Biden administration, former President Donald Trump, they say, if reelected, would use the decision and the underlying authority to justify blanket bans of people from certain countries, as he did while in office. Well, that's dumb, because the reason why he had the air quoting Muslim ban is because he was banning people, and it was a pause, by the way, from certain countries that were riddled with anti-American sentiment. But I do find it interesting. Would love to know what you think on the super text line, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. 2407 says, you do know that you can get tattoos removed, right? Well, of course. That's the other thing that I find interesting, is why didn't he just either A, have the tattoos removed, or B, have the tattoos made into something else? It's 24/7 is absolutely right. I believe that we wouldn't have this problem if we would just fix the immigration system by and large and get our borders under control. We've got more on that coming up after the news at 7 here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 6:53, again, the Super Text line is open at 615-737-9986. And boy, they are very busy this morning. 615-737-WWTN. It is time to find out from Ken Weaver what's coming up in the news at 7.
Well, America's top diplomat headed back to the Middle East after more attacks on U.S. troops outside of the Israel-Hamas war. New developments related to the leak of Covenant school shooter documents here in Nashville. President Biden has his first campaign event of this election cycle today. Mixed reaction to a Tennessee bill that would ban emotional support dogs and other animals from hotels and restaurants. These stories and more at 7 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken. 6:54. And Ken, that story on the dogs and not allowing, dogs in restaurants and so forth.
Yeah, Brother Dan.
I actually find that interesting.
Okay.
When did this story come out? Is this a news story from this morning?
This is the bill was filed Wednesday to be debated in the General Assembly, which reconvenes on Tuesday.
Okay.
And it says no emotional support animal in hotels or restaurants. That includes coffee shops, unless there are certain conditions that are met.
You know why that is? It's because people have been cheating the system. You got all these, places that'll give you a, whatever, a pass, if you will, and say, yeah, this is an emotional support animal, when that animal doesn't actually fit categorically into that designation.
Yeah, I mean, I could take Fritz into a hamburger joint and say, little wiener dog here, he's my emotional support animal.
That's exactly right. And so people are obviously getting tired of having to deal with other people's emotional support animals, whether they be a ferret or a bat or, whatever it might be, or even a dog. You don't want to see, no offense to dog owners. I've been a dog owner for years, but nobody wants to, sit around and try to eat while there's, puppy fecal matter everywhere or, the puppy dander that might be, on these dogs.
Yeah.
So I totally get it.
Now, at the same time, though, what if a business wants to allow that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ken, because then you could go into, regulations and government overreach. Mm-hmm. And nobody likes government overreach.
Nobody likes that government overreach, Brother Dan.
No, we don't, especially conservatives.
That's right.
And it's a Republican-led state legislature. Yep. So, I don't know.
2 Republicans filed the bill.
Should we try to take calls on this?
Sure.
Johnny, hey, Ken, watch this. Yeah. Hey, Johnny, should we try to take calls on this?
Brother Johnny B says, A-OK.
I don't. You know what I think, though? I think that when Johnny gives the A-OK sign, that's actually Johnny speak for middle finger.
Well, he did include it.
That's exactly right, Ken. Johnny did include the middle finger in that A-OK. I'm going to try to take, this always ends in oblivion. But it's 7:30.
But you're going to do it anyway, aren't you, Brother?
I'm going to try to take calls at 7:35 on this topic. So if you are passionate about this, get your dialing fingers ready for 7:35, and we'll take calls on that.
All right, Brother Dan Mandis.
DT McCall's. Now, listen, they've got some great news for you gun owners. If you need a gun safe, they are now sales tax free. Their gun safe sale continues at DT McCall's. Now, you know that they are Tennessee's largest Liberty gun safe dealer. They also offer free delivery and setup as well. Now, others are going to charge you up to $500 for delivery and setup, depending on size, but not at DT McCall's. They deliver and set up for free. So you need a gun safe, or you've got a loved one that needs a gun safe, think about DT McCall's. You can use your gun safe to keep anything safe: valuables, cash, jewelry, documents, wills, deeds, and car titles. Whatever, your most important valuables are safe from theft or fire with a gun safe from DT McCall's. Find them online. It's dtmccalls.com.
7 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Real quick, Metro Police have streets blocked off south of downtown where police say a woman was shot. They say the woman was inside a home when multiple shots came into the house and hit her in the leg. News 2 says she was rushed to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. This is the 80 block of Lewis Street. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. America's top diplomat is returning to the Middle East as tensions continue to rise amid the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict.
Rebels based in Yemen have launched yet another attack on a commercial ship, this time using a one-way unmanned attack boat, and no one was hurt. Now, the rebels backed by Iran have attacked several commercial ships in recent weeks in support of Hamas. The attacks are forcing ships to take long detours, and that's driving up shipping costs. Global shipping rates are up more than 60% in the last week, and from Asia to the west coast of the U.S., rates are up 30%.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken left Washington last night. He has stops planned in Turkey, Jordan, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates. Also, he's going to visit Israel and the West Bank. Right now in Nashville, Metro Police have reassigned 10 police officers who were questioned about the leak of some of the Covenant school shooters' documents. Metro Police conducted an internal investigation. They say they tried to interview a former detective who had those images of the writings, but that person refused to cooperate. The department claims there's no evidence of wrongdoing on the part of any current member of the department, but no reason given for the removal of these 10 detectives from the Special Investigations Unit. Election 2024, President Biden will hold his first campaign event of the year today.
President Biden is hoping to jumpstart his re-election campaign. He's visiting Valley Forge, Pennsylvania today, a key site from the Revolutionary War, where he's expected to lay out what he believes is at stake in the upcoming election.
America's still a place of possibilities.
The Biden-Harris campaign releasing its first ad of the year, timed to coincide with the third anniversary of the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol.
All of us are being asked right now, what will we do to maintain our democracy? History's watching.
Well, Biden's approval ratings are in the 30s, which is why some observers say he's trying to sell himself as the savior of democracy, because trying to sell the economy or his accomplishments are not going to be enough. Channel 4 says they got...
Well, you know, Ken, his accomplishments wouldn't fit into, like you only got 60 seconds there. His accomplishments were like 5 seconds. So what would they do with the other 55 seconds?
Brother Dan, one of those observers. Channel 4 says they got mixed reaction to a new bill that would ban emotional support animals from hotels and restaurants in Nashville.
I go to coffee shops almost every single day. I love hanging out with dogs, too. And what's the point of an emotional support animal if not to be emotionally supported?
I think that Nashville, we have a big popularity of taking our dogs into grocery stores, into restaurants. I see it both ways. I have a dog, but I do not take my dog into restaurants because I do not want to be around animals when I eat.
Now, this bill filed by Lobelville Republican State Rep Kirk Haston and Savannah Republican State Senator Paige Whaley says only animals that are trained or being trained to help people with disabilities will be exempt. Market Numbers Report. Market Numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. Online at beaconcm.com. Dow futures down 84. S&P down 13. NASDAQ down 56. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
For many of us, generators are becoming a must-have household appliance. From unpredictable weather to surprise outages, it's better to be safe than sorry. Generator Supercenter of Nashville offers fast and easy installations with 24/7 service and monitoring to all brands of generators and expert repairs done right. Our mission is to make owning a backup generator simple and easy. Visit your local store today or check us out online. Generator Supercenter of Nashville,